Today we're going to be looking at learning target 9D, which is factoring polynomials. Factoring polynomials is just the process of undoing the multiplication that we've learned earlier. So in learning target 9A, we started looking at multiplying, so taking two expressions, multiplying them together to get to a problem that looks like this. Now we're going the other way around. So we're taking this problem and breaking it into its factors. When factoring, the first thing you're going to want to look at is the sign that is in front of your C value. If that sign is a plus, we know that both of the factors will be the same. In order to then find out what both factors would be, we would look at the first sign. So in this case, the plus sign in the back tells me both signs would be the same. This plus sign tells me they would both be plus. If the second sign is minus, then we know that there will be a plus and a minus in your factored form. So let's look at exactly what I mean by that. So looking at this first example, this plus sign tells me they're going to be the same sign. This plus sign tells me they will both be plus. So when I factor, I'm going to end up with two plus signs. Again, down below, I'm going to look at the second sign first. Since it is a plus sign, I know that they will both be the same sign. I'll then look at the first sign, and that tells me what they both will be. If the second sign is minus, I know that I'm going to be dealing with one plus and one minus in factored form. Same thing down below. If it is minus, I'm dealing with 1 plus, 1 minus. Notice that if that second sign is a minus sign, the first sign does not matter. So I don't even have to look at this first sign. I know automatically it's going to be 1 plus, 1 minus. So let's go ahead and figure out how we get to the numbers involved here. So in order to find the numbers when our a value is 1, meaning that the number in front of my x squared is 1. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my c value, and I'm going to figure out all the factors of 6. Well, I know I could do 1 times 6. I could do 3 times 2. And those are all my factors of 6. Now I need to ask myself, which of those factors add up to my b value, which is 5? Well, 1 plus 6 is 7, so that won't work. But 3 and 2 does equal 5. So I know they're going to be the same sign. Both will be positive. So when I write my factors, it would be x plus 3 and x plus 2. And I could check my work by using the double distribution if I wanted to, and that would take me back to my original problem of x squared plus 5x plus 6. Let's look at another example. So first thing I'm going to look at is my signs. So this negative in the back tells me I'm going to be dealing with one positive and one negative. And I'm looking for factors of negative 21 because that is my c value. So factors of negative 21, I could have 1 and negative 21. I could have positive 21 and negative 1. The reason I'm listing this twice is because of the negative. Notice in the first problem I only listed the factors once because they were both the same sign. I could also have 3 and negative 7. Or I could have negative 3 and positive 7. I then need to figure out which of those factors would add up to give me 4. Well, 1 and negative 21 gives me negative 20. 21 and negative 1 gives me a positive 20. 3 and negative 7 gives me a negative 4. Notice I want a positive 4. And negative 3 and 7, that gives me that positive 4. So then I can write my factors as x minus 3 and x plus 7. And I've got my factored form. Now, when your a value is 1, it's as simple as finding those factors that add up to that middle term, that b value. But if that a value is more than 1, we have to go back to the square that we've been using for multiplication. So here are the steps that you're going to go through. For the expression 4x squared plus 4x minus 15. Notice, again, I'm going to look at this sign here first, and I know that I'm going to be dealing with a positive and a negative. First thing you're going to do when you draw your box is you're going to put your ax squared value in the top left corner. So this 4x squared is going to get moved right there. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to take that c value, so this negative 15, make sure the negative goes with it, and it will go into the bottom right. Now we have to figure out the factors. So we're going to multiply our a and our c value. So 4 times negative 15 gives me negative 60. I'm going to have to find the factors of negative 60. So we've got negative 30 and 2, or 2 and negative 30. We've got negative 60 and 1, or, pardon me, this should have been negative 230. Or positive 60 and negative 1. We've got 3 and negative 20, or negative 3 and positive 20. Now, one thing, I could make a really long list here, but I also want to keep in mind this next step, which is I'm trying to find the ones that will add up to 4. So I know I'm going to have to get numbers that are really close together. So I could do 15 and 4 is a possibility. So 4 and negative 15, or negative 4 and 15. But again, that doesn't get me to that 4. So then there is 5 and 12. So we're getting closer. Sorry, 5 and negative 12. So negative 5 and positive 12. So we're getting closer. Other factors are negative 6 and 10. Now I know when I add those two together, I'm going to get a positive 4. So that is what I'm looking for. Negative 6 plus 10 does give me that positive 4 I'm looking for. So once I find those two terms, I'm going to take those terms and put them in those boxes. Now it doesn't matter if you put the 10x in the top right and the negative 6x in the bottom. You'll still get to the same answer eventually. Step 6 is we're going to factor out the common terms. So what I mean by that is I'm going to look at each column and each row, and I'm going to pull out what they have in common. So for instance, if I look at these two rows going up, well, let's number these boxes, that might help. So if I look at box 1 and box 3, I know that they have a 2x in common. I could factor out a 2x from both of them. 2 goes into 4 and 10. X goes into x squared and x. Then if I look at box 2 and 4, I could factor out a negative 3. Negative 3 goes into negative 6, and negative 3 goes into negative 15. Then I'm going to look at box 1 and 2. And I see that I could factor out a 2x there as well. Then I'm also going to look at boxes 3 and 4, and I see I could factor out a positive 5. So then, at the very end, you're going to write out your factors. So whatever you have up top, this 2x minus 3, that's one of our factors. And whatever we have on the side, 2x plus 5, is our other factor. And we have factored that polynomial. Let's look at one more example when our a value is more than 1. So first thing I'm going to do again is I'm going to take my ax squared, so that 3x squared, put that in the top left corner. Take my positive 6, put it in the bottom right corner. Notice my sign, it's going to be, both will be the same sign, and we're looking at two positive numbers. So I'm looking for factors of 3 times 6, which is 18. I'm looking for factors of 18, which will add up to 11. So factors of 18, that will add to 11. Remember, I'm looking for positive numbers. So for 18, I've got 18 and 1. Got 2 and 9. Now I know right away, there's my answer, 2 and 9. I could keep going if I wanted to, but as soon as you find those values that you know will add up to 11, you're done. So I'm going to take that 2x and 9x and put them in the box. Now I'm going to use my greatest common factor to fill out what they have in common. So I'm going to start by looking at boxes 1 and 3. I notice that they have a 3x in common. Now I'm going to look at boxes 2 and 4, and I notice they have a positive 2 in common. I'm going to look at boxes 1 and 2, and I notice that all they have in common is an x. I'm going to put it on the right side here. And then I look at 9x and 6, and I notice that they have a positive 3 in common. So then I'm going to take those factors, 3x plus 2 and x plus 3, and those are my factored form. So there is my final answer in factored form. What I'd like for you to do now, here are 8 practice problems. The problems on the left have an a value of 1. The problems on the right have an a value greater than 1. Go ahead and take the time to practice this skill. The next slide will have all the solutions. So go ahead and pause the video till you've had a chance to try them all. And here are those solutions so that you may check your work. If you have any questions, please make sure you ask Mr. Dunn, Ms. Knutson, or myself.